I've been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of Exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the fire building in the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Kate.
610B. That was the Mayday. 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Coming up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire on the fourth floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
We're back with another episode of Old School. I'm Rick Lasky, along with my best buddy, John Sulka. And John, before we move into our topic, let's say goodbye to 2021 and welcome 2022 in. It's kind of funny because we kind of forgot about 2020. We keep it. Sadly, it's like every year now is good. We can't wait for this year to get over to get to the next year. But let's just hope that we can keep moving through this whole pandemic thing, and things were kind of getting back to somewhat normal. And then when the next strain came in, and we're back to all the other stuff. But you mentioned something the other day about this particular strain, though. Everything we're seeing on the news, if you can believe that, about the seriousness of it or not compared to the original one, it's bad enough, but not, I guess, not as bad a strain as the first one, right?
Right. I mean, all the doctors are saying it, national, whatever channel news you watch, whatever region you're in, most of the doctors and experts on television are saying that it's much more contagious, but much less damaging. People don't get as sick. And that's certainly what they've been saying about the vaccines. They want the vaccines to prevent you from getting really sick or going into the hospital or maybe dying. But it appears that this second variation is although spreading much more rapidly. You see the numbers every day right now going through the roof, but very few people being hospitalized and even fewer people dying. Hopefully that information is all correct. I'm just reciting what I'm hearing on TV, but it does sound right, and it does appear to be right, even though everybody's instituting face masks inside everywhere in public places and all that, which all makes perfect sense. Again, I'm not getting political. Whatever your point is, whatever your point of view is on vaccinations or face masks, knock yourself out, do what you want to do. But the issue is that this second strain appears to be a little bit less hurtful to the body, which is great news. So maybe it's part of it taking its natural course, and maybe a lot more people will be infected or affected, and then maybe everybody will have some natural immunity, and we can maybe eventually take stuff down again like we did a few months ago and get back to a little bit more of a normal. Frankly, my whole life right now is in a very much normal routine. I put a face mask on like nothing. I have one in each pocket in my trousers every day. And whether I'm in a supermarket or in a library or going to a store to buy something, I just throw it on. And like you and I traveling around a little bit now, I hope that doesn't get slowed down too much by this. But after I get in the airport, I have that mask on, for an hour in the airport, for 3 hours on the flight, for an hour at the layover, for 2 hours on the next flight. And frankly, it disappears. I don't even know it's on anymore. I'm sitting on a plane watching a movie or doing something other than the fact that I might want to take a drink or something. I'm not defending it, but I'm sort of living with it. So.
Well, you know what? Everything normalizes after a while, right?
Absolutely.
I always said that about being a young paramedic. I certified in 1982, and then later on we got into the AIDS scare, and and it was everybody had to glove up and wear masks, and I'm like, you can't wear latex gloves. I can't feel the vein. I can't take down the IV and all that. Blah, blah, blah. And now I wouldn't touch that doorknob over there, without putting a glove on. But hey, you were talking the other day, and I think this would be a great topic for this episode, John. You were talking about a new class that you're going to be doing for, I think, the New York Chiefs, for our good friend Sue. She's, first of all, what a phenomenal, I love following her on Facebook. She makes me, when you read stuff that people post and all of a sudden you just burst out like that LOL, laughing out loud. Sue, if you're listening, I was actually laughing out loud. She makes me laugh, John.
I'll tell you what, I think Sue could be a millionaire. I think she could go on the comedy circuit and make big bucks. She really is genuinely funny. and everybody around her just loves it. You know, when you comment, whether it's on Facebook or whether you're sitting with her somewhere having dinner or at a conference or something, she truly is funny. And since we mentioned Sue Revoit from the New York State Association of Fire Chiefs, which I'm a proud member of, they have a new expo coming up, the Long Island Metro Fire Expo. It's in the beginning of February. It's going to be at the Nassau Coliseum. And as Rick just said, there's going to be some great folks out there teaching. A bunch of top-notch presenters are going to be there. Among them, she asked me to contribute as well. And I'm going to be presenting on Saturday, February 12th. And my topic is 5 tactical benchmarks for structural fires, which is what we're going to talk about here today on Old School. I think it's a great topic. It was something I've been sitting around. Gosh, you know, you read Facebook, you read, you know, you go through all the stuff that's online and everywhere else, magazines, and you start saying to yourself, my God, what are these guys thinking about? I mean, I was a chief for 17 years in the Bronx, and I'm not hardly understanding what this guy is either writing or talking about, you know. And I just wanted to sort of put some baseline stuff out there, you know.
And some of them, John, you're kind of alluding to that. You and I've talked about as a class. Some of them, it's like they're reading off a clipboard. It's like it's like, hold on, let me turn pages here. You know, I have radio traffic from battalion chief in the Metroplex from a 10+ station department. I won't say where, in the Dallas-Fort Metroplex, a battalion chief at a structure fire, at a working house fire, pulling up, telling the truck crew, John, telling the roof crew to go to the roof and cut him a 4-foot by 4-foot hole on the leeward side of the roof. I swear to God, that's what a battalion chief, a guy running a whole shift, a guy running a whole battalion, said, go to the roof and cut me a 4-foot by 4-foot hole on the leeward side. I wasn't even at the fire, and I was angry that he said that. I'm like, really? That's how poor your firefighters are? Or you
and I got to tell you, and I know some guys in trucks and rescues and stuff like that in New York City that would answer that chief back on the radio, say, are you sure you want a 4x4, chief? Not a 4x6.5. A 4x6.5 works pretty good. And I'm not sure what that leeward word means. Do you want me to face the sun or do you want me to face the south? You know? Well, I mean, how ridiculous.
And part, now I will say this, John, part of that is the classroom. You and I, we do a lot of teaching. We both believe in hands-on and getting out there and doing things and so on and so forth. But we saw something years ago in Illinois. Let me give you a scenario. So I pull up, it's after midnight. It's a call right on the border of our jurisdiction and our neighboring jurisdiction. Okay. It's across the street and there's like 3 homes going. I think only one was occupied. The other 2, anyway, that being said, we had three of them going, and I get there and we've got a full still coming along. All right. We've got engines, truck, ambulances, BC coming. I came from home in my chief's car. And, so I'm an assistant battalion chief, actually, coming from home, safety chief. And the first new piece of apparatus for this neighboring department, John, is a battalion chief. He pulls up and I go over to him. I go, hey, we got a full still coming in here. I know you guys are coming. This is yours. I'm going to keep him coming. Tell me what you want him, you know, what you want him to do to kind of fit into his process, right? You know, be respectful. It's his side of the street, that kind of thing, you know. And we, you know, and I swear to God, he looks at me, he goes, okay, I need you to get all there. He opens up the back of his fire SUV. Actually, it was a van. He opens it up. He goes, okay, get their passports from them, their accountability tags. And I went, okay, what, you know, engine 3 is about to turn the corner here. You know, how about we grab that building? You guys start work, you know, I mean, let's start divvying this thing up, right? He goes, I need their passport. I went, oh my God, he's worried about accountability tags. He hasn't even assigned anybody anything. And it was happening more and more. And the reason it was happening, John, is we were doing these tactics and strategy classes at the Institute at FSI, that we were programming people into being clipboard commanders. Like, now, don't get me wrong, I'm all right with checklists and stuff like that. But when you can't run I've said this before, if you can't, I'll say this out loud, if you cannot run a 1 alarm assignment, a fire, as a BC, as a shift commander, as an incident commander, if you cannot run it without a clipboard in your hand, that's your first alarm assignment. If you can't run that without having to look at a clipboard, and John, tell me if you're different on this, you shouldn't be running a fire. My holy God, you can. So seriously, in order for you to run a 1 alarm assignment,
Right.
You
And we're
have
not
to
talking about, and we're not talking about a high-rise building or a beach community with fire on a 17th floor. We're talking about a house fire with fire out one or two windows in a residential neighborhood. That's what we're talking about. If you can't get that underway, just walking around the scene with your microphone in your hand, then you should be cutting grass or baking bread or doing something else. You shouldn't have the whole assignment's lives in your hands if you have to order the RIT tags or anything else like that.
And if you're parked down the block where you can't see things, you're driving an SUV, you're driving something pretty mobile. You should be able, John, I used to drive through yards. I used to get out and walk down the street. But if I got in there pretty quick, with the first engine, second, whatever, I'd jump a curb and park in someone's, or park in a driveway or whatever. But
I'll tell you what I've said a bunch of times. If somebody, now listen, some guys are captured. Some guys are battalion chiefs in a fire department where the chief makes them stay in the car. No matter what they say, they're down the totem pole a little bit. They don't make it that decision. They have to stay in the car. If they made me stay in the car, I'd park on the front lawn. I'd park on the front lawn of the building that's on fire. And you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just crazy. It's unfortunate that exists in some places.
Well, and my thing is, how do you now you rely on radio reports of fire conditions, smoke conditions. Again, back to the radio traffic I have, John. I have one where this another call, this one BC 3 different times asked a paramedic who was out in front of the building, okay, so how much smoke do you have coming out of the garage area? Okay, what color is the smoke? I swear to God, he's asking what color, and I'm like, God, and me, John, I'm not being Ricky, dramatic here because I'm into the data, not the drama, but so drop a mayday in there. If you can't run a house fire without confidence, what happens? You drop a mayday. You can't even run. It's not even your house. Jack McCaslin used to say, Eddie Enright, Rick, it's not your house. You didn't light the damn thing on fire. Calm down. We're the fire department. They called 911 for us. We can't dial 912. Right. The public has a certain expectation when you pull up that you remain calm and you do your job and do your job to the best of your abilities.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
And it's this kind of thinking and it's this kind of attitude or culture that's developing in the fire service in different places that caused me to put this assignment together, this presentation together, to say, hey, you know what? Let me take my years of experience in the FDNY and elsewhere as a chief officer, and let me make something pretty simple for guys to follow. Guys and gals.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Yes, for the FDNY, but you're the chief presently of South Blooming Grove Volunteer Fire Department. Great fire department. I love your guys. Especially the more we met them when we picked up the ladder truck. They're awesome. Okay. So you go from the Pez dispenser, surplus firefighters falling out your pockets in FDNY to South Blooming Grove. It's the same thing, is it not? It's the same. These 5 tactical benchmarks for structural fires are the same things, whether it's in the FDNY or it's South Blooming Grove during the day with your volunteer fire department. Are they not?
Absolutely. And it doesn't matter, like you just said, whether you're a small volunteer department in a suburban or even a rural area, anywhere in America, any state, any region, right? Or whether you're a career department with 12 stations or 23 stations, it doesn't really matter. Once you pull up to the scene, once you're face to face with a structural fire, with a building fire, nothing dramatic, not a 300 by 600 factory 5 stories tall, with a 1 or 2 story house or a small commercial building. Once you're face to face with a building, there's really just a short list of, I call them benchmarks, a short list of things that have to get done, tactical operations that you're going to have to make sure get done. Now, obviously, you got the crews coming in, you got engines or trucks or quints or whatever you have. Listen, you got to deal with what you have, right? Just like we do in our company officer class. But the point is, these are the things you got to get done. Yeah, I mean, and this is memorized stuff. This is stuff that you don't even have to write down or have a. So
let's hit number one. Hit number one. You said.
The first one is sufficient assignment. Okay. And I can't tell you how many times on the way to boxes, on the way to alarms and runs in the Bronx, I can't tell you how many times I glance down at the computer, or if you don't have a computer, if you don't have a CAD, if you have just a radio system, that you listen on the radio. Attention, battalion 1, engine 2, ladder 1. Okay, there I go. I get 2 engines in a truck coming in. What am I going to? Report a smoke in a house. Now you know you're going to a house.
Okay, wait, John. Oh my God. What did they do before they had computers in front of them? How did they run? Right. I don't know how they ran fires back in the old days. I'm perplexed.
What did they do before? What did they do before there was a speaker in the firehouse that told you where to go and just bells went off? And you had to count the bells and then transcribe the bells into what location it was, and then you had to get there, right? But yeah, so sufficient assignment, making sure you get on the sufficient assignment is really important. And again, I can't imagine any fire department where the shift commander or the battalion chief or whatever you call the chief officer that runs first alarm fires. I can't imagine that there's a fire department that does not allow or give that person the jurisdiction to call for more help at any time. I've filled out the box a couple of times in the Bronx on the way there. 1-8 battalion in the Bronx, go ahead, 1-8, fill out the box for me. And they don't ask why, they don't ask anything else. 10-4, 1-8, and they give me the additional 2 engines and additional truck that weren't on the initial box because maybe they weren't available when I got that call. All right. I did that a number of times. I can't even count it. Or said, give me a full box. Give me the 3rd engine or give me 4. You know what? The dispatchers in New York City Fire Department, civilian dispatchers, they're not uniform members. They're not sworn. They're not firefighters. They're civilian radio operators. They are authorized to bump a box up.
Oh yeah.
I'll be going to a box and all of a sudden I'll hear Bronx to the 1-8. Go ahead. We're getting a lot of calls here, Chief. I'm giving you 4 engines, 3 trucks to squad rescue. All I do is tell them, thank you.
Wait a minute. That's a civilian dispatcher that's never been inside a burning, that's never had a clipboard in their hand or been to attack. They're actually telling you what they're sending you.
Now listen, some of them, many of them are firefighters back in the districts where they live, or maybe volunteers somewhere, or maybe their kids are on a job. A lot of them are related to people on a job. But having said that, just as many are not. Just as many are just great, quality, excellent. Some of the best dispatchers whose names you recognize were never firefighters. And you know what? They give them the authority. They give them the ability to bump a box up based on what they're hearing on a telephone.
And you know me, I love the dispatch center. I did it. That is the nerve center. Sometimes we as firefighters and chiefs beat up on them sometimes, forget, we'll go, oh, we have crappy dispatch or whatever. Well, we have crappy firefighters too. We have inexperienced firefighters and officers that make mistakes all the time, but we live in our own special world where it's all about us. And we forget that, you know what? Yeah, you may have had the dispatcher that's not the best or learning still, but we have the same thing on the fire side. But oh my God, great dispatchers make for great incidents and great things.
Right. And the point is, if a dispatcher can accurately and successfully bump a box up or an assignment up a little bit because of what they're hearing on the phone, certainly the incident commander or the en route incident commander or the battalion chief that's assigned on the box should be able to call a dispatcher and say, send me some more. Give me another one. Volunteers, hey, South Grove, call 1 to Orange 911. Go ahead. Resound my alarm for all of my manpower. Looks like we may have something. And they will do that.
And so you've said this for decades. We've been together. We're talking about a sufficient assignment. Bullet point number 1. This all should have been determined before the bells ever rang. You should have this stuff. This is what happens when you don't have good SOGs, when you don't have good response SOGs, when you don't have good box cards, when you don't have good mutual and automatic aid agreements. You can't even think sufficient assignment if you don't know who's around you, what you have available to you, if you're a big department. And let me just say this, you and I've said this forever. I love the phrase, I'm going with this, think big. Think big, think big, think big. I'd rather have people stand in the street, tripping over Halligan tools and 6-foot hooks than turn around and have an empty street and have crickets. You know what I'm saying?
What's going on here? What's with all the rigs? It looked pretty good when we pulled up, so we got them all rolling. Yep.
Well, and you've said this, and we've talked about we work with a lot of departments, and to our listeners, a lot of departments have minimum staffing. Some of them are two-man engines, two guys and gals on there, and even more so, you have to be thinking big and getting people coming right from the get-go. You got to cut. Our response. We talk about this. The response time. All right, the response time. Everything starts, the fire clock begins, and our guys in Stockton talk about this. The fire clock begins at the 911 center. When they receive the alarm, when they receive the call, boom, this is, it's like the traumas, the OR, the clocks that set, they keep looking at that clock to see how far they're into this trauma, deal with this patient. The clock's ticking. And you say it all the time, there's little children and people laying inside beds, inside buildings, the more we can't make decisions because either a fire chief has hamstrung us where we can't make decisions on our own, or we can't think outside the box, or we can't call an audible when we need to. Go ahead, buddy.
And that's why the clock is so important, because it affects 2 things. The first thing the clock affects is the survivability of the folks that were there to rescue when they were there to serve, or as like a lot of people nowadays like to call them, those people who called, those people who were inside breathing some superheated gases and smoke, right? So number one, the longer it takes us to either get there or get lines in operation or get into the building, the more dangerous it is for them. And also, the longer it takes, the more the fire grows. The condition worsens and worsens and worsens. And whatever the formula is that people come up at different places, that doesn't really matter. You just need to know it gets worse every minute. It gets worse every second.
Oh God, exactly. And we've said before, I've had guys say, well, my first two engine was still, I was on the scene first, and they were about 3 or 4 minutes behind. 3 or 4 minutes to us going to get a pizza delivered is not a big deal. 3 to 4 minutes to the Smith family in there is a big deal. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's that's the difference. Those are death difference makers. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So you say it all the time about they're not our seconds. They're not our seconds. We should be cutting every second we can off our. How fast can we get out of the firehouse? First off, what do we have to do to cut our response time, our turnout time, and to get there? And that means being fully dressed, having tools in your hand. You know this. We're both this way. Drives us out of our minds to have firefighters show up who aren't dressed, have no tools in their hands. I don't know why you even went to the fire. Stay home, read a newspaper. Stay home, play video games or whatever you do, because you're not a firefighter if you show up without your shit on and without your tools in your hand. So number one is sufficient assignment, right?
Number two is confirm fire location. Now that's got to get done. Now listen, if the chief
that
arrives
seems pretty
after
simple.
the first engine,
That seems pretty simple though, right? I mean, you pull up and there's.
Listen, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is pretty simple. Sometimes you pull up, you see fire out one window. It looks like the kitchen. You got a kitchen fire, but not always. I've always, that was one of the arguments I had with all these hit it hard from the yard folks, saying, oh, just dash down the driveway 20 or 30 feet. There's just one window with fire, one window on the right-hand side of the building, exposure 4 side, right? Run down that driveway with the line, charge it, give it the 10 or 15 seconds into the window and knock that room down. And my question always was, are you sure that that's the room of origin? Maybe the fire started one room in from there and has extended into that room, because that's the room that had the window open in the middle of the summer. And now it's venting out that window. You think you're knocking down the main body of fire, and it's really in another room.
Right.
That whole thing of identifying where the fire is by which window it's out is not necessarily true. The only thing you can guarantee is that there's fire in that room, but you don't know if there's fire in yet another room farther in from that.
And
room.
for those, I mentioned it, Trophy Club, great fire department. I had the honor of being interim chief there. Chief Taylor is doing great things there in Trophy Club. There's great people there. But there were times, John, back then with 5 people, on duty, you get the ambulance going to hospital doing CPR, takes you to their firefighter. I remember we pulled up, golly, huge ass multi-million-dollar home with fire out 2 windows with 2 guys on the rig. You know what? They are going to hit it hard from the yard. They're going to do whatever they can to slow it down from the outside till the cavalry gets there. But the fire started somewhere, like you said, and it's not always, and you know what? You've heard me mention Chief Tom Freeman all the time. Tom, one of my good buddies and mentors. Tom uses this phrase, John. He used to say, don't let the fire, the Southside Chicago phrase, right? Don't let the fire snooker you. Don't let the fire sneak up. Don't trust it. It'll lie its ass off to you. If you think it's out that window, get your ass inside, because chances are it's probably somewhere else, or it's in the walls, or it's in the attic or whatever. Don't ever let the fire fool you. So number 2 is confirm the fire location.
Right. And as you said, it could be easy. It could be hard. Maybe you got a small home and there's fire out what obviously looks like a bathroom window. Or
what if you have no fire, John? How many times we pull up and we just have building just breathing smoke?
How about that? Yeah. No visible orange. Smoke coming out of every window. Now what do you do? Well, now what do you do? Well, you can't say, well, let's skip to number 3 then, because you can't. You're still gonna have to find the fire.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So, confirming the fire location is important. And
can I back up for a second and throw something in there? This is where a rapid 360 has to be done. And John, I'm a big believer in the first arriving engine or truck, or whoever that first piece of fire apparatus, the officer has to get off there. First off, you pulled up. We've talked about this a bunch of times before. 9 times out of 10, you should be able to grab, let's talk single family dwelling. You should be able to grab 3 sides of your size up already. Take a quick duck to the backyard. This should not be like a guy doing an estimate on painting your siding. You know what I'm saying? That you know, just like a primary search has to be quick, down, hard, and dirty, so does your 360. Your 360 as the initial officer has to be quick. And John, this is where I used to talk about the chief officer needs to make a 360 as well. You said it before, things could have changed. I remember getting first at a fire on Valley Parkway during the day, good fire. As I'm coming around the back of the house, Tom Mack, great captain in Louisville, he's coming around. I said, Tommy, it's out the back, right through the front door. He looks at me, goes, really, Chief? And I went, yeah. We get around the back, and because I was trying to stop him, like, I got it for you. He goes, haven't you always preached we need to do, you know, I don't care if there's a chief or not. I need to see what I'm the first arriving officer. If I'm crawling in there first, I need to have a good picture of what's going on. So doing that 360 shouldn't take that long. This is a quick, get your ass off.
You should practically be running. You should practically be jogging around doing a 360.
What is our friends in Stockton called? I think they call it, John, I may be saying it wrong. They call it we work at a rapid pace, I think it is. You know, they call it a rapid, they're not running, but there's a little jog. What do you say? There's a bump in your, or what do you say about it?
There should be a little bump in your step. Everything you're doing.
Right? I like that rapid pace.
Any information you collect on a 360 is old when you get back to the front of the building. It's already old information. Right. We talked about this before. And if you're a real firefighter from a real fire department that goes to real fires, you already know this. There could be you could do a quick 360 and see a lot of hot windows and smoke come around the front as a chief. And then the first engine gets there and you tell them everything looks good, no visible fire around anyway, but you got a lot of smoke coming. And if the engine officer says, let me do a quick, he might walk around, and might be fire out the kitchen window by then, around the back of the house.
Or there's guys that have done a 360 with a basement and not seen any indication of a basement fire. And then a chief gets there and does his 360 and goes, when did we start having signs of a basement? Well, I didn't see it when I did I just think, you know, it goes back to Eddie Enright's thing in Chicago, John, cover and contain. Cover the building with as many firefighters, as much water as possible, contain it to the room of origin, floor of origin, building of origin. Cover and that means good size ups, good 360s. You already said it. We'll go back over. Number one, bring enough people. Number one for you is sufficient assignment. Right. Bring enough people, think big, have it preset. Number two, you said confirm the fire location. You don't do that you don't do that sitting in the front seat of your fire SUV. You don't do that without getting your ass out of the car. You have a portable radio for a reason. If you have to go back and sit in the car and draw pictures, which then get out, do a 360 and go sit back down. It goes back to
a shame that some chiefs are sidelined by rules and regulations and tactics and stuff like, you got to get the board together with all the tags on it. Then you got to draw the map on your whiteboard. Then you got to, and also they're doing all these little things that are all vital and important. I'm not minimizing their importance, but sometimes they got to select the right vest to put on. Then they got to, and before you know it, not only do I do a 360, I can't tell you how many times I've returned back to the rear of a building, a second time, or even a third time to see how things were going during the fire attack, during the middle of the operation. Don't be afraid to do that either.
Oh, exactly. So
all right. So let's get to point number 3.
Yeah. So that's where I was going. Number 3, initial fire attack. Go.
Initial fire attack. You got to get them in there. Now, obviously, you got some people there already. Sufficient assignment is you, yourself, and I. You by yourself, making sure you get it or calling for more people. Confirm fire location. You're part of that too. If you're the first arriving chief, you may be the guy that goes around the back and says, oh, we got fire blowing out the door and the window and the kitchen in the rear. Or you may be assisted by, or you may assist the company officers in that operation, confirming. But an initial fire attack now is really just an order that you're putting out there. For the most part, battalion chiefs, incident commanders are not involved in pulling the first piece of hose, but you want to get that line going.
And John, for those crews that run short-staffed out there, we always point this out when we do our class, when we do our fire ground scenarios class or the first 2 officer. How many people here run with 5 people on their engine or the ladder truck all the time? And you get maybe out of 250, 300 people, you get a couple of hands. How many people run? Sometimes it may be none. How many people run with 4? You get a couple of hands. How many people run with 3? And then how many people run with 2 on their apparatus? And you say it all the time. You could line the street with fire trucks, with fire engines and ladder trucks, man. Fire engines and ladder trucks don't fight fires. Firefighters do. So you have to have that done. So we can sew crews together. If we have to, to make things work, you pull up. hell, by the time your first due engine officer, he gets his quick 360 doing, maybe his chauffeur is stretching the line, getting on the lawn. Now an ambulance crew pulls up or whatever, whatever pulls up next. Now you put these crews together and you actually can begin your fire tack fairly quick, even piecemeal in your crews together. But you're not going to do that, John, right? Unless you're talking about this initial fire tack at the kitchen table with your troops. You're not going to do this if you're not having those tabletop discussions, and you're not going to do it. I've said this before, is if you're a battalion chief, you should be riding around during the day going, okay, if I got Eddie Enright used to do it. If I had a fire in that building, where's my water? If it was 2 a.m, 2 p.m, what exposures do I have? You know what I'm saying? Playing soldier, in your head, playing tactics and strategy in your head. If you're waiting for the fire to play tactics and strategy or waiting for a classroom, you're already behind the gun. So keep going. Initial fire attack.
And it's so important, initial fire attack. How many times have you and I, either at classes or even used videos in classes, or even just looking at YouTube for something that comes up in the news? How many times have we seen an engine roll up to a fire, stop, two or three firefighters hop off, start opening compartments, maybe finishing putting their coats on or their SCBAs, or not even doing that. Hop off, fully geared up, ready to go. And it still takes them 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes before they actually get water flowing out of the end of a hose line at a structural fire, at a house that's obviously burning, and they probably saw the smoke 2 miles down the road before they got there. And that's unacceptable as well. Doesn't matter whether you're in a hydrant area, whether they're rolling in with a pumper tanker, whether you got a 750-gallon tank and you're going to probably run out of water before your second rig gets there, or your supply line is dropped, or whatever.
I like when you say to those that go, I'm afraid of, you always say this, well, I'm afraid about using tank water. I'm afraid of running out of water. And you always say,
right, if you don't use the tank water that you brought, you already did run out of water.
You
arrived out of water.
You're out of water.
The same result happens, So yeah, and initiating that initial fire attack, getting that thing done, ordering it, prompting the engine, let's go engine one. We got to get a line in there. We got to report a people in there, and you can get that whole job moving. Of course, you can even now remember, now you can backtrack too. You can go back to step one again when you're the chief and say, 1A battalion, or call one to radio. Go ahead, send me 2 more engines. We get this house going really good. It's threatening exposure too. And so you can go back to sufficient assignment and call more people again. But getting that initial fire attack underway is really important.
And this goes back to what you hinted towards earlier. When it comes to those that you watch on the videos, because the proof's all out there, that can't see the stretch. If you practice stretching lines, I've said this over and over again, no disrespect. I'm a big believer in fire-based EMS, paramedic a long time. Nothing else matters on that pumper but the hose and the water. Everything else on there is extra. Since the days we had hose tenders and ladder tenders and people pulled them by hand, the only thing that mattered was the hose and the water. Now, I know everything else is important, don't get me wrong, but you know what I'm saying? It's about stretching lines. If you're an engine officer and I don't care if you have one firefighter, if that one firefighter is not stretching hose for you all the time for training purposes, they should be able to get off the rig, and you should be able to take their COVID mask and put it over their eyeballs and blindfold them, and they should be able to pull the line flawlessly. Look up the definition, folks. Flawlessly. They should be able to pull that line. Again, watch Louisville, Texas, watch Stockton, California, watch the Colony, Texas, watch Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I could go back and forth all over the country. Those guys step off the rig, John. It's sometimes it's like a magic show, how fast they can stretch a line safely, efficiently, boom, and be ready to go. So
we're not talking here about hazmat or confined space or lunar modules or anything else that's really difficult. We're talking about stretching a hose line. Every single fire department, every single firefighter, that talk about a baseline tactical operation. Stretching a hose line is something every single person that puts on a helmet got it. I know there are people that can recite what model leather helmet they have and when it was built and what the new red color is, but they don't know the difference between a fog tip and an adjustable, and a smoothbore nozzle.
Exactly.
So, let's pay attention to the priority.
So we started off number one, folks, with sufficient assignment, get enough people coming. All right, and do this ahead of time, and you can go back and revisit that and get more people coming. Number two was confirm the fire location. That's a good size up. That's a 360. That's getting out and taking a look. That's we're talking number three. We just finished was initial fire attack. Practice, stretching those lines, get off the rig, dressed, ready to go, boom, be ready. Number four, John, conduct primary search.
Primary search. Now, it looks like it's way down on the list, but, sufficient assignment happens before we even arrive. Confirmed fire location is a mental, that's a mental exercise that's going on when you get there. Obviously, the clock is still ticking. Initial fire attack must happen ahead of the primary search, unless, of course, depending on your department. The FDNY, a truck might arrive 30 or 40 or 50 seconds ahead of an engine. Primary search begins without an engine before initial fire attack. That's just the way we're structured over our staffing and the way we run our engines and trucks. But most fire departments, when people arrive together, an engine and truck pair, obviously we want to get that initial fire attack, and then conduct or get that primary search underway, especially, but I don't want to put too much of a priority on, especially when people are reported trapped or missing or inside, because that's nonsense. When people are reported trapped, they're just telling me something that I already thought. When I pull up to a house that's normally occupied, that's on a street, and it's got the grass cut, and it's 2 a.m, expect fire, expect victims. That sign that you have there is so true. I always expect victims, unless the windows are broken, the grass is 2 feet tall, there's a for sale sign out on the front lawn, no visible.
So let me ask you, so how quick, I'm being sarcastic with this, I guess. So you got the engine crew, we're doing our initial fire attack. How quick are you expecting someone to get in the building to do the search?
A search crew from when they report to the chief. Now, search crew could be an engine that just laid in a supply line, the second due engine. They just laid a supply line in for the first engine, who's already inside with their attack line, right? They complete the supply line with the chauffeur out in the street. Then they walk over to the chief. Chief, we just laid the supply line. It's ready to go. What do you got for us? Hey, engine 3, give me a primary search. 10-4, chief. It should be under 25 seconds, they should be entering the front door. If the attack line's in there already, there's no forcible entry involved.
Right.
If there's forcible entry involved, that should be almost immediate. But if there's no forcible entry involved, if there's already a crew inside, within 20 or 25 seconds, they should be on air, going through the front door with a plan on where they're going, whether it's the first floor fire and they're going to go to the second floor or whatever.
And some of these guys are so good. They pull up, they got a lot of fire extending up, or maybe auto expose it to the second floor or whatever. And while the crew, the search crew, they're forcing the door, the engine crew is knocking down what they got from the outside. It's like, it's so the teamwork, how they work that together is, we talk about a coordinated, aggressive fire attack. That's right. How you do it. Get water on the fire.
What you're doing. Go ahead.
I was just saying, get water on the fire. Get someone in, now get the line in, push in, get in there, start doing a search and rescue, start venting. We got to vent. We have to vent. Whether that's one guy around the back, popping a door window, we've got to give it somewhere to go. But John, not to play it, down, that whole expect fire, expect victims. You know what? I don't care. I hear people do this. You hear dispatch, dispatch will say, the occupants say they're all out. Okay. Well, okay. So show it all clear in the building. I'll be there. You're not even there yet.
Right.
And you're trusting someone who just come out of their house that was on fire.
I wouldn't trust if somebody walked up to me and told me face to face, everybody's out there over at my house. We've all heard those stories about the kid that came home from the store or from college or was in the basement playing when they thought he went over to his friend's house.
Get your ass in there. Get your ass in there. And some guys will find any excuse not to go in and do a search. That's right. Expect victims. Expect you know when you're done expecting, it's just like when you're done expecting fire, expecting victims is after you've been inside and after you found, I talked about for years, my 4 rules. Every time we go out the door, you've heard me say this thousands of times. Every time we go out the door, we're going to fire. I don't care if it's an automatic fire alarm. Every time we leave state, we're going to a fire. When we get there, there's no fire unless we, the fire department, says there's no fire. There's nobody in there unless we, the fire department, say there's nobody in there. And it's not out unless we, the fire department, say it's out. Simple. Yep. Getting back quick to that, conduct a primary search. I even recognize great companies. Sometimes when you see a video or even live, you see a truck pull up or an engine pull up or whoever it is that's doing a search, you see the company officer walking over to the chief saying, hey, chief, we just got done with that line. We're ready. What do you need us to do? Oh, give me a search. And he turns, and the 1 or the 2 firefighters that rolled up with him, they're already at the front door forcing the door because they know that they're going to be the search team. They know the first engine's already got the line on the front, the front lawn, and they're waiting to go in. These 2 firefighters or a single firefighter that's with a boss doesn't even have to be told. They get off the rig with tools in their hand because they know what they're doing. They walk over, they start forcing the front door to this house. And an officer turns and says, hey, Billy, we get the primary, right? Doors open, boss, let's go. And in they go. That's what makes a 20, 25 second
primary search happened.
And I'll say this, and tell me if you agree or disagree. I put some blame on the chiefs, or let's just pick on the battalion chiefs for a shift here, or the officers. If your firefighters don't know what they're supposed to be doing, I'm amazed that you could have firefighters responding to a fire, and they have to have their hands held. They have to wait for the BC to say, go to the roof and cut me a 4 foot by 4 foot hole on the leeward side. I mean, you listen to these fires and you're going, really? Permission to enter the structure. Is the structure
viable?
To
go interior. Permission to go interior. My head would explode if I ever heard that in a fire.
Yeah, go back to a building construction class and a fire. When you pull up, if you say it's ordinary construction, you better mean it's ordinary construction. It's just not brick veneer. Know your freaking buildings. Know your enemy. And we had a lot of fire. Good. Fire's knocked. Let's get inside there, or let's continue. Permission to enter the building. Permission to and you've got somebody sitting back in a car. In some cases, John, they can't even see the damn building, telling them what they can or cannot do.
One more correction to what you said. You said whether you agree or disagree. I disagree with one thing you just said. If people don't know what they're doing, if people don't know to get off the rig with tools, if people don't know how to force a door by themselves, if people don't know when you're the second engine in your little city, when you're the second engine and the first engine stretching a hose line, a 3-person staffing city, if you know that you're going to be the search team, it has nothing to do with the chief. It's all the company officer's responsibility. Company officer. And that's they are the training officer for their shift.
And that's where I was going with. If the BCs are not sitting down having coffee with their company officer saying, these are my expectations. This is what I expect. When I pull up, I canned reports, all this different stuff, so on and so forth. When I pull up, give me a quick, hey, this is what I got going on. Battalion one's out, show battalion 1 in command. Engine 5, what do you got? Chief, I got a line through the front door. We got a primary, blah, 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 all that stuff. Good. Like we've been doing 100 years, but sometimes there's some places, John, that actually take the first arriving officer, even though there is a chief officer coming in behind them, the first arriving chief officer, a first arriving company officer, pull them away from their crew, make them take command, even though there's a chief coming in behind them. And now this captain or lieutenant is sending in some cases, a brand new firefighter, another firefighter. They're sending them into a hostile environment without their leader because you're the first engine there.
Inexcusable. And there's a videotape out there. Andy Frederick's training days. I've been doing it for years. We lost Andy on 9/11. He was one of my guys in 48. He died in Squad 18 with Billy McGinn. But that's what Andy Frederick's training days is about. He was a firefighter down in Alexandria before he went up to FDNY. And after he was killed on 9/11, they started an annual training event down there that I've been at every year. And a couple of years I've hit on that topic during my presentation. And they got it on video. They play it once in a while. I think you could probably go to the Andy Frederick's Training Days website and see it. And it's me on the floor doing a presentation talking about that exact topic. Who here sends their company in when they're first to arrive and there's no chief on the scene and they stay outside to assume command? And guys raise their hand. And I walked right up to a guy and I said, really? What is that based on? The guy's like, well, the incident command system requires, really? And the incident command system doesn't require any supervision of young, inexperienced firefighters inside a burning building? And don't you know, I'll tell you now, don't you know that you can go inside, be on your hands and knees next to the nozzle man and still be in command of the fire via radio? You can be working and still be in command if you're the first engine at a working fire.
And this goes back to what we just said about, the chiefs making sure the company officers know what to do. I used to, Jerry Wells said it best. Jerry was a battalion chief in Louisville for a long time. Great guy. Him, teaches all over. I remember him coming back on a Saturday, John, from a 3rd alarm fire and apartment building. And he comes back and he walks in my office. He goes, I think I've arrived. I go, what do you mean? He goes, this was the extent of my orders when I pulled up. I got out and I went, I go, yeah, it's pretty cool when they know what they're supposed to do. If you're the second engine, really, you have to have a piece of paper in front of you saying, hang on a sec, guys. If we're second, hang on, let me see. Oh, okay, we're supposed to do this no, you should know what you're supposed to do in your freaking head before you leave the firehouse. That's what good combat SOGs, that's what good solid SOGs do for you when they're practiced, discussed, talked, and used. So number 5.
I was so spoiled. Number 5 in the FDNY, first 2 engines, 3 engines, first 2 trucks. Everybody knows where they're going. Everybody knows how they're getting there. Everybody knows what tool they should be carrying. Everybody knows who they are on the radio, their radio ID. Everybody knows so much. I pull up to a scene, a decent, even a good working fire. I don't say a word to the first 4 units that arrive there, whether they get there with me, before me, or after me. They all have dedicated assignments. No need for discussion. The radio is almost silent upon arrival because everybody's going right to work. They know where they're going. It's such a wonderful feeling to see things move quickly.
What happens when you know your job, when you empower people, when you train them, and when you delegate? All right, number five.
And the last one.
Last one.
I mean, I listed establish RIT as the 5th action of the 5 things that you need to get underway right away. And the reason I did a 5th is because, frankly, Charlotte, all those other things have to get done first. All those other things are part of the active developing fire that you have to get underway. You can't establish a RIT. Number one, what does establish a RIT do for you? It takes two people away from the initial fire attack, right? If the first thing you do is establish a RIT team, you're really hampering yourself. You're really slowing down your fire operation. Now, I know there's RIT people out there that get upset about this. Number one, I don't want you to get too upset about it because I am a RIT supporter. We created RIT. We have so many great programs on RIT. We love it. And that doesn't change the fact that sometimes you got to get people going at a structural fire and without having an established, well-staffed RIT team in place. And that's just the reality of reality.
Exactly. And again, you know, I'm surprised how many fires I do go to where there is no RIT team. It's like, well, and they go, well, I've got them over there, or the next engine. I mean, they're just so busy and you know what? You see it in class. First thing we have to do, let's talk about this real quick. First thing we have to do is do our initial fire attack. We have to get water to the fire. However, we have to deliver the water, get water to the seat of the fire or on the fire as quickly as we can. Number 2, we got to have somebody vent in the building. Number 3, we have to have somebody searching. And we have someone in command. So all of a sudden you're going, oh yeah, I forgot about the RIT team because I was bringing a second engine in, thinking about it, because the second engine's got to be assured the first engine's got a primary water source or another means to sustain the attack with water, whether it's dropping tanks, what do you have to do? And then if once they've done that, then they got to be thinking second line. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, there's so many things. It's almost like RIT and training now. You and I, our goal in 1990, 1991 was to get every fire academy in the country teaching RIT. And we did. Well, now in the academies, it's almost like teaching salvage covers. Okay, what's tomorrow's drill? We got RIT. Okay, they do it, they're done, they move on. And it's kind of lost its edge a little bit. So has RIT on the fire ground. It's like, well, yeah, do you have a RIT team or do we not have a RIT team?
There's one great point about RIT that's wonderful if you can get it established, particularly for career departments, but I see no reason that volunteer departments can't do it as well. Because even in a volunteer system where, pagers are used and then volunteers respond to the station and then, call out, engine 587 responding, 10-4 engine 587. Well, the dispatcher now knows that the first engine is out the door, right? And then a minute later you hear engine 585 responding. Now the dispatcher knows that the second engine is responding, right? A career department, you might send 587, 585, ladder 1, ladder 6, all on the box. So the dispatcher knows 2 and 2 are going. In the FDNY, the RIT team, the fast truck, is the 3rd truck on the 1075, and they are told on the radio, Bronx to ladder 5-6, ladder 5-6, ladder 5-6, you are the fast truck for box 3129. 10-4 Bronx. Now, and then the Bronx calls, Battalion 1-8. Battalion 1-8, be advised, ladder 5-6 is your fast truck. So now the chief is told by the dispatcher who the fast truck is. The fast truck is told by the dispatcher that they've been designated and they are responding in as the fast truck, and they acknowledge that. Already done. What does it do? It takes it off the shoulders of the incident commander. He doesn't now have to remember to establish the RIT team. It's established for him by department policy, by somebody thinking about it ahead of time and saying, let's have the 3rd engine that responds in, let's make them the RIT team. And have the dispatcher notify them en route. They're talking to the dispatcher anyway. We're responding. 10-4 ladder 6, be advised, you are the RIT team. 10-4 dispatch, done. It handles it. Now they don't even report in and say, at ladder 6, what do you want us to do? In hopes that the chief forgot that they're the RIT team. They're already told.
So let's recap here as we bring things to a close. God, I love this. Obviously, we both love this topic, but we're talking about the 5 tactical benchmarks for structural fires. Number 1 was having a sufficient assignment, having enough people, enough units, enough people coming. Number 2 was confirm the fire location. Number 3 was your initial fire attack. Number 4 was conduct the primary search. In between there, we have to throw ventilation, be it looking at that. Number 5 was establish writ. And again, these are, like you said, a couple of these are really like initial fire attack and primary search are almost sewn together. Sufficient assignment, confirm fire location, a lot of that. So, this isn't like, well, I've got the 5 steps. This should take me 35 minutes. You mentioned that perfectly earlier. This is quick, boom, 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 boom.
And if you look at it, the first 2, sufficient assignment, confirm fire location, those are both sort of mental exercises. The first actual tactical operation that's underway is the third one, initial fire attack. That's the first one where firefighters are actually, moving into the building to get something done. So you can't confuse every step with necessarily a physical action.
Exactly. So keep your radio traffic clear and concise. If you're the incident commander, think about what you're saying and stop with the long stuff on the radio. And John, and real quick, before we finish this one out, folks, fully involved means fully involved, not well involved, not fire out 2 windows. Fully involved sets people back on their heels. There's no victims. There's none of this stuff, whatever. Understand what the term fully involved actually means and take a look. And lastly, if you don't have the SOGs, if you don't have the playbook, every NFL team has a playbook. Every NFL team trains all week long, thousands of times on the same play. And they get to Sunday's game, they still call a huddle, and they still get together and talk. They still have a playbook. So figure out what you got to do SOG wise. Anything else, John? Things to close it out, buddy?
That's it.
All right. Perfect. Hey, another good one. If they want to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com.
And I'm Chief Lasky at gmail.com. And as we started, let's hope 2022, let's kick it in the ass. Let's do some great things. Let's keep working our way through this pandemic. I can speak for John. We talk about this all the time. Thank you. We are so proud of what we have. The fire service has responded to this pandemic. Yes, we've stumbled a little bit here and there, but another thing that you guys and gals have done a great job. Thank you for what you do. That being said, thanks for listening. Spread the word about Old School. We ask you at the end of every one of these episodes to please keep the men and women in our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, never forgetting means never forgetting. Thank you. Be safe. God bless you.